Kevin Gordon here from AutoSavant.com, coming to you from the 2013 Mazda MX-5 Miata PRHT Club Edition. So that is the, of course, Mazda MX-5 in the power retractable hardtop and the Club Edition, which gets you a bunch of the sporty features of the MX-5 without all the luxury pieces, as well as the power retractable hardtop. So before I get too much farther into the car, just want to remind everybody out there that if you like our videos, please be sure to subscribe to the channel. It does make a big difference to us and in dealing with the manufacturers as far as getting cars that are interesting earlier than later, like this one. And also follow us on Twitter. It's AutoSavantKG, and it's always at the end of every one of our videos. So let's talk a little bit about the MX-5, and it sort of worked out perfectly when this car got scheduled, because the week before it, I had the Scion FR-S, which in my eyes is the most likely direct competitor to this car as far as just sort of a pure driving experience. I can tell you the key difference in my eyes between the two cars is the fact that this car is light in all of its touches. You know, the FR-S I described as deliberate. There's weight to all the things that you do with the FR-S. Well, in this car, everything is very light and well defined, but it feels more dainty from a daily living perspective than the FR-S does by quite a significant margin. And dainty might seem like a unfair term in some ways, but it really isn't. It's in some ways a compliment, where the FR-S is heavy and notchy in the shifter. The MX-5 winds up being light and clean and, you know, really difficult to miss a gear. The clutch in this car is lighter. The steering feels lighter. But even with all of that, you don't really lose anything in the process. There's no tactile loss in the lightness that you find in the MX-5. It's just a different feeling. And it really is sort of an interesting matter of choice about what's a better option between the two cars. So the MX-5 in this iteration has been on the market for really quite a long time for a modern car. You know, it's lived a life in its model run longer than a lot of cars that are on the road these days. And it's held up quite well. You know, I think what the MX-5 Miata always had going for it was a really competent chassis and good suspension tuning. I think what winds up being interesting about it from a feeling perspective is there's more roll in the suspension tuning of the MX-5 than there is in, say, the BRZ. You definitely get a little bit of lean in corners in this that you don't get in some of the other little sporty coupes and roadsters. But there doesn't seem to be any dynamic penalty for it. You know, it's not like that roll is a deal breaker for any type of enthusiastic driving. It just is sort of a layer of forgiveness that's there, and as a result does lead to a bit of a more refined ride on busy roads. I think one of the things you could clearly state is that the MX-5 is more forgiving from a suspension tuning perspective than the FR-S is. Where the Miata starts to give up as a result of being on a much older platform is in the creature comforts, which might not most important thing to you if this is the kind of car that you're looking at. But like the radio doesn't have Bluetooth connectivity, so you're stuck actually holding your phone and going back to some kind of, you know, connected system with the 3.5 millimeter cable that's here. The seats are fine in the MX-5. You know, they're not quite as sporty, but they're still pretty comfortable. The obviously smaller platform winds up feeling a bit more claustrophobic. I think despite the improved ride, the Miata MX-5 really wouldn't lend itself to being quite as friendly of a daily driver. It really is more of a dedicated weekends, sunny days type of car. The other important note about this edition of the MX-5, so the club model, you get some interesting badging. You get the big red thing here on the dash. You get blackened wheels, the limited slip differential by default. All the stuff that you really want for driving is included with this model. You also get, of course, the power retractable hardtop, which, in my eyes, the retractable hardtop, the soft folding version on the MX-5, is actually really nice. It's pretty much as well insulated as this is. You don't really get much of a step up as far as refinement from a road noise perspective with this roof. But, you know, if you're interested in amateur driving events that require an actual top instead of a folding soft top, this does meet that need, which is a positive thing. Even on days that it's cold and, you know, not all that pleasant from a weather perspective, the heater does one heck of a job keeping up with the car. And, you know, it's indicated a 44-degree day, which makes it so that the, of course, summer tires that are on this car are less than grippy, but, you know, it's not a bad place to be in here. You could drive it on the highway with the top down to reasonably cool conditions and never be uncomfortable. The problem here seems to be that it's far from being inexpensive. You know, this car comes in just over $29,000, and it's a lot of money for something with less than 200 horsepower. It's a really good driver's car, but with the folding hardtop, you get no other luxuries in here, and you're still paying a $4,000 premium to get into a convertible, basically. The chassis on the MX-5 is still one of the best ones on the market. There are few things that are this neutral and well balanced when you get into sporty driving conditions. You know, even on a day like today, where the roads are wet and extremely slippery, there's few things that give you more information about what's going to go on with the back end of the car and the front wheels than an MX-5 can. You know, it's a car that really can bring in so much confidence to a driver and make you feel like a much better driver than you may actually be. You know, this stuff is tricky today, and there's really no concerns about sort of leaving the tail out whenever you'd really like to. So there's an ongoing argument about the engine that's in cars like this and whether adding more power ruins them. Well, I think what I would say is the 2-liter inline-4 that's in the MX-5 is a great little engine. It's enormously durable. It's linear from a power delivery perspective. Sure, it's a little light on torque and doesn't really make a big throw in top-end horsepower. But I would come down with the fact that this car could use a bump in power. I would love to see it come from an updated version of a naturally aspirated engine that just gets some more horsepower at the top of the rev range. I can understand how they don't want to turbocharge an engine like this, even with as good as turbo cars have become recently, just because it would take away a bit of the natural sort of flow and delivery of this car. But is it underpowered? I think you could make an argument that it's not completely adequately powered. You know, we're in the wet here on really slippery roads, and still it needs to be provoked to do bad things. I think if push came to shove and you made me buy one today, it would be the FR-S or the BRZ. It is a bit more livable on a daily basis just because of the fact that it has rear seats, the trunk's a little bit bigger, you get a little bit more from a creature comforts perspective. But with that being said, and to just flat out contradict myself, you really are not going to go wrong if you come home with an MX-5. You know, you sort of know it's going to be a dependable, trusty, little fun thing to drive. And like I said, if convertibles are an important thing to you, it always has that option waiting. So with that, I'm Kevin Gordon from MotorSavant.com, and I look forward to talking to you guys soon.